Hello, and welcome to the Purity Centers.
Thanks so much.
How you
Thanks for
doing?
inviting.
Uh,
Thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
I know my chat has been clamoring for you all night,
Perfect.
and this is Nova, my co-host. We'll both be asking you questions if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So,
All
first
right.
question: are you actually a gamer? Do you play any of the games that you voiced in?
Not at all. I am not a gamer.
So, did you know anything about Dr. Robotnik or Eggman before you got the part?
Not in great detail. I had probably heard his name in passing, but they hired me because I can act, not because I can game.
Fair enough. What really got you into voice acting in the first place?
As a child, I loved the radio, listening to the radio, wanting to be on the radio. And when I grew up and got into high school and college, I got to be on the radio. And after doing various odd jobs in radio, including being a disc jockey and making commercials and typing index cards for the record library, I realized what I really enjoyed was making wacky voices in commercials. So when radio decided it had had enough of me, then the time came to put together a demo reel with wacky voices, and I did that, shopped it around to various producers, and one of them were the people behind Pokemon. Got a quick role on Pokemon, got some other anime work, and that eventually led to the other stuff at 4Kids, because 4Kids was doing Pokemon, and that ballooned into ultimately Sonic and Sonic X and the Sonic games, and coming up Sonic Boom.
Well, okay, we have a question from the chat. Psychotist asked, "What's the hardest role you've had to voice for?"
Um, it depends on how you would define hard. Parts of Dr. Eggman can be very hard because of all the yelling and screaming. Any violent death from any character, if there's lots and lots of screaming, leaving you hoarse for a couple days, can be defined as hard. There are also various corporate narrations that have lots of technical jargon or mathematical formulae, and I've got to learn how to pronounce those. That can be considered hard. I've done some audiobooks, and those stretch into 6 hour sessions, also including in one book mathematical formulae for physics, and in another book German pronunciations. So that can be considered hard. So it depends on your definition. Either way, it's all fun, but there are some challenges along the way, as with any job, presumably.
How does it
Now
feel
I
getting?
see.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nova.
Oh, I see. You were actually the second voice for Robotnik or Eggman. Did you have to try to mold your voice to match the older voice actor, or did they try to take and adapt your personal voice to it?
It's a combination of both. My immediate predecessor was Dean Bristow. When I was brought in for auditions, they played me samples of Dean Bristow and said, do an impersonation. So I listened to Dean Bristow and came back with essentially a Dean Bristow sound, which is way down here, Dean Bristow. And I did that for my audition, essentially parroted back what I was given for the samples. The folks at 4Kids who were holding the auditions and ultimately convincing Sega that I was the right person for the job said, not quite, come back again. Came back for a third round, for a second round, the first round of callbacks it would be. Did the same Dean Bristow thing, Dean Bristow, and that still didn't apparently work out, so came back for a third round. So I guess a total of three, but one audition and two callbacks. And finally, that was the one that put me over the edge. And after the first few episodes of Sonic X, when we realized that there was more comedy in the script than the straight laced, ultra gruff, ultra low Dean Bristow voice was going to provide, the directors and I mutually decided let's put some more highs and lows into the voice for more comedic friendly delivery. The reference they gave me was Martin Short's Jiminy Glick character because he starts up way down high and then comes way down low. So that ultimately morphed into a more comfortable Eggman range for me, which is pretty much where it is now.
All right, we have Miles asking, "Do you have a dream character you want to voice, or just a dream role that you've always wanted to do?"
I love working, so any role is a good role for me. I would like something big and theatrical. Someday that time might come, but right now I've got big in TV. I consider a major cable network to be fairly high profile, so Sonic Boom, thank you very much.
Well, playing Eggman as long as you have, do you get kind of a sense on how he would act now when you read the scripts? Do you ever think, I don't think he'd probably say that or anything like that?
No, I usually leave it in the capable hands of the writers. They've probably done a little more research than I have.
Now we see you have a website. Um,
Yes.
it's got your audiobooks, and we've also heard that you collect Eggman stuff and review them. Is it true?
I've got a collection of stuff only because I'm so closely associated with him. So yeah, there's 2 shelves of Eggman merchandise.
And I'm gonna
Um,
put the website up for y'all to check out in the chats.
Perfect.
Now
Everyone go over there.
you've done quite a few other roles with animation and cartoons. What do you like doing better, video games or anime or cartoons?
Uh, Probably cartoons. Prelay cartoons are the easiest, where you record stuff first and then the animate voices to you. But those are fewer and far between, at least for me. Sonic Boom has been a prelay production, and that's great fun because there's no time constraints. You have the freedom to act the lines the way they should be. Um, Next down the list would be anime and general dubbing because you've got to squeeze your voice into more specific spaces to match lip flap, even though the engineers end up doing a lot of cutting and pasting and stretching and squeezing and massaging to make it fit better. But still, it's a bit more constraining. And games are much more disjointed and much more repetitive. Pardon me, perhaps might be a better choice of words because it's just a lot of lines strung together. You don't really have a lot of context. And then there are always the dreaded reacts, strings of efforts and grunts and exerts and various fighting sounds. So if I had to prioritize, it'd probably go like that.
And on that note, who out of everything you've done, who was your favorite role to do so far?
I like the voices that make me laugh. Eggman and Sonic Boom has been a brilliant combination of clever writing, great lines that I get to perform and turn into magical bits of audio. But before that, Meat from Ultimate Muscle holds a special place in my heart, mostly because it's a hysterical truck driver voice that I would laugh hysterically while recording. And any of the variants of that voice, which include Bonaparte in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, who is a sort of effeminate Meat, and Big Oriki and Gogo Riki, who is a slightly more intelligent Meat. But that's a voice that just hearing it come out of me makes me laugh. And also the much overlooked Ella from Ella the Maid from Sonic X. That was also me.
Psychotist asks, what's it like to be the narrator to the Pokemon series?
It's essentially reading words on a page and making sure that it sounds like I'm making sense, even though I have no idea what I'm talking about. I was only a narrator for a couple of years in between the previous guy and the current guy, who's the same guy. So I call myself the interim narrator because I just showed up in between. Pokemon, whatever I'm doing on Pokemon is always great fun. But the narrator was a special, fun little thing.
Let's see. So you have written for radio?
I've written comedy bits and song parodies for a radio syndication service providing comedy for morning shows who can't make their own comedy. I worked on some local morning shows and wrote some comedy for the local folks there. And then I was just a disc jockey and doing other wacky stuff.
So what's it like going from radio to TV? Was it a big change from what you're used to?
Not really. Doing animation and stuff is very much like reading commercial scripts because it's just words on a page, and it's the same kind of theater that I was doing in school and college when I was doing on-stage work. When you're a disc jockey and you're just sitting and ad-libbing, it's a different thing, and that takes some getting used to. And that was fun, but it grew rather tiresome. I would still be comfortable getting back into radio. I could still kind of do it if I had to. But doing wacky scripted characters is what makes me happy these days.
Have you ever ad-libbed any lines for any of your characters?
I have. They don't usually get used, mostly because the stuff is quite well scripted in advance. But from what I understand, some of the ad-libs that I've done for Sonic Boom will be showing up, little incidental moments. And if they don't, not a problem. They've got writers.
I definitely actually can't wait for that to come out next month. So everyone check it out on TV. November 18th, I think, is the release date.
November 8th is the TV show.
Oh, sweet. I think the
On
game
Car-
is the 18th. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, they're all around there, but the one that should be most interesting to see as far as my work is concerned, I believe, will be Sonic Boom on TV, November 8th on Cartoon Network.
Now, you played a character for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles called Jack Kirby. How did it feel getting to be named after such an important comic book character.
That was one of the few chances when I really was able to do some research because it was actually based on a real life person. So I had to find some audio clips of Jack Kirby, which was harder than I thought. Found out along the way that he apparently didn't like being turned into a cartoon character, but too bad. That's what I had to do. And it was lots of fun finding a reference point, being able to lock it down into my head to make it sound right. And I think it turned out quite nicely. A lot of people found that a rather touching, moving episode.
Were you into comics before you did that role?
Not especially. I had a passing interest in comic books as a child because that was just stuff that was available to read. But upon doing the research, I realized what an important figure Kirby was, and knowing that I had to make his memory proud.
Oh, Psychotist asked, how do you prepare for each role?
Depends on the role. If it's a commercial role, there may be no time to prepare. I'll get an audition notice from one of my agents or managers with a very brief rundown of what the commercial's about, what the specs are, the specifications for the particular character. Won't have any script until I show up at the audition, usually. So cold reading is a skill that you got to master in this line of work. I'll get handed the script. I'll have a couple of minutes to read it over. Then into the booth I go and hope that the instincts that I brought with me are the right ones. Same thing with cartoons. Generally, you'll have sides when you go in for auditions, so you'll get little clips of dialogue and a picture and a description of the character. But beyond that, doing your own research can be tough, especially on shows that are heavily localized, because the backstory that you read about online may not be the backstory that you're going to end up with by the time you get into the studio. So it varies with the role.
Now, for those looking to get into voice acting, because I know a lot of people are, what would you say to them to help them get into it?
Make sure that you study theater in general before you pursue voice acting specifically, because acting is the basics of acting are the same, whether it's on stage, on camera, or behind a microphone. So you have to learn about how to react and sound natural when you're reading lines so that it doesn't sound like you're reading a script at a specific time. You've got to be comfortable in a studio. You've got to be comfortable getting wacky and not be introverted when you're inside a booth. If you can afford to take some voiceover classes or acting classes, that's good too. And once you've gotten a demo together and you've sent it out to the right people and you start auditioning, get used to rejection, because I'm constantly auditioning for various roles and constantly getting rejected or ignored. That's just part of the deal.
Aw. Now, do you prefer to be behind the camera doing the voicing or in front of the camera just being silly?
Generally behind the mic because of my radio roots, and I can be much less inhibited when I'm behind the mic. But also when I'm doing voiceover, I can book roles that I wouldn't likely get doing on-camera stuff. No one's going to cast me for Ella the Maid if it was an on-camera piece. But when I'm behind the mic, suddenly I'm sounding like this, and you don't know it's me. So that's what I do.
Now, since you say that you can always relate back to your radio roots, have you ever thought about doing a podcast or like an audio blog for your website?
I have. It's a matter of what is there to discuss, because a lot of the stuff that I would want to talk about, I can't talk about because it's not released yet. And I can't talk about auditions and stuff that I haven't booked yet because that stuff is all pretty confidential. So it would be a matter of finding the right subject matter before I'd pursue such a thing.
Since you mentioned that, are there any new projects that you can talk about with us that you're getting ready for?
Let's see. Well, I just did a non-disclosure agreemented, that's not really English, a video game with a non-disclosure agreement. So I probably already said too much saying that I was working on it. Let's see. Is there anything that's on its way out that's been promoted? No, not really. I mean, I do various commercials and stuff, and when that happens, I'll post them on social media. But there is nothing imminent other than Sonic Boom. And Sonic Boom, I can't reveal much until it's finally released, but I can promote the stuff that's already been released about it. Excellent trailers and teasers.
Let's see. Gaming Writer asks, you voiced Eggman Nega in the Sonic Rush games. How did it feel putting a more heartless and villainous twist onto the original role of Dr. Eggman?
That's one of the wonderful challenges of acting, is finding out what the script is about and finding ways to honor the intentions of the writers in the script. So for not only Eggman Nega and Professor Robotnik, his grandfather, who I also voiced, but the various permutations of Eggman from the dreaded Sonic '06, which was a much different character design and a much more dark, edgy, violent script for which a goofy read would not have been appropriate. It was interesting finding the different dynamics to be able to work with. So that was it's that's my answer to gaming. I don't game because for me my job is my game. It's trying to solve the puzzles of how to make this line sound right, how to make this characterization sound right, how to make the whole thing sound right. So that's part of the beauty of acting and part of the beauty of what I get to do.
Beautifully put.
Thank you.
Or Damn Anime Lover asks if it's fun to do audiobooks.
It depends on the subject matter. I of the ones that I've done some much shorter, lighter fiction works. Those are easy. There's some characterization work that you can do in there. But the two that I've done for Audible, the big audiobook publisher, one was about physics, one was about Nazis. Not really a lot of fun going on in either of those. So those were quite challenging, especially because they were also 6 hours of reading and reading and reading and reading. But if it's short and fun and maybe more kid friendly, then those are fun. But the ones for the adults, especially based on the reviews that I got, not really.
Okay, Redimus wants to know if you've ever considered doing any other kind of creative work instead of voice acting, like writing or illustrating.
Back when I was in radio and writing for the syndicated company, I wrote over 1,000 song parodies of various lengths on various topics because that was my responsibility, and various comedy bits and wacky news articles and regurgitated hard news and stuff. So that got most of the writing out of me. I will occasionally bang out a song parody or a comedy bit or a promo if the mood strikes me. But in most cases, if I'm lucky, voice acting takes up all of my time. If not the actual working, the other actual looking for work. So those moments of other creative outlets are few and far between, and purely on a news basis. Like just recently, I made a couple of promos for a podcast, which I guess I can mention one of them because it's already aired. The other one may have aired today. I haven't heard it yet. But for Cake and Cookies on the More Broadcasting Network. They were soliciting listener promos. I said, I could do that. I've got some wacky audio drops I can put together, string it into a promo. I did. They loved it. That was great. So just to remind myself that I could still do the radio production that I used to do, which I did. But beyond that, regular basis, not really. That gets a little time consuming. But I've convinced myself that I can do it. So if I need to take a break and something else strikes me, I do have an ongoing comedy blog, which is a debatable term based on the subject matter of the blog, but it's the latest deadlines.blogspot.com. When celebrities die, we make wacky, funny tabloid headlines about it. Some people don't find the humor in that, and sorry.
That's definitely something I'm gonna have to check out. Now,
Please.
Yeah,
have you ever
I'd
gone
see-
to cons to meet the fans?
Absolutely. Just a couple weeks back, we had the major Sonic Boom event, where the entire principal cast of Sonic Boom showed up. We read some scripts for everybody. We did some autographs, and it was an unprecedented love fest, if I may call it that. And I've been to various other anime cons, which are less of a love fest because it's people who are fans of more than one thing. And while I've been in more than one thing, the dedicated Sonic fans that I would expect to show up aren't always there in such great numbers, and fans of other stuff that I've been in might not be showing up. So still the people that show up, always great to see them, but not necessarily the huge event that Sonic Boom was. But I love cons. If you have a local con, have them ask me to show up.
I'm gonna definitely have to contact our local one because I'd love to get my little Eggman figure signed by you.
Perfect.
Yeah. You said that you spend a lot of time looking for work as well.
Mhm.
Have they ever actually come to pursue you to get you to do a work? And on a related note, do you find that older voice actors are losing their parts to younger ones?
What?
I have various agents and managers and other online sources that I guess come to find me. It's mostly that agents will have a list of clients that they have, and when advertisers come looking for roles to be cast, the agent will say, "Oh, well, I could send this guy and this guy and this guy," and then the agent calls me, and I say, "Sure, I can show up tomorrow at 2 o'clock," and then I show up tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So that's sort of pursuing. It's not the commercial people usually don't pursue me directly, but from what I understand, sometimes the casting houses will specifically request certain talent. So in that case, that goes through the agent and reaches me. So I guess that's sort of as being asked for directly. But there's nothing wrong with meeting new clients because people that don't know me from my cartoon work but are pleasantly surprised when they find out the type of voices that I can bring to their product. That's always great too. Um, and there's always going to be a place for older actors because there are always going to be older roles. And with all due respect to younger actors, they can't always get the older sound in their voice the way clients might want it. So that'll keep me working.
So here's a weird little question from one of our fans. Which
Yeah.
character that you voiced would you love to have as a roommate in college? Really?
Uh, Probably Meat from Ultimate Muscle because he was just wacky and outgoing and big and loud and brash and seems like he'd be tons of fun.
I think we found his favorite role.
It was my first major
Now,
recurring series role, so it's got a special place in my heart. No question about it.
now, doing all of these roles, have you made any great longtime friends while performing the roles? Like any friends from the other actors?
They become more acquaintances than anything else because we're usually busy doing our own things and we can't really hang out much. But with all the various other actors, I'll see them as I go from audition to booking and back and forth, and we'll maybe get 5 minutes to chat, which is usually time enough to catch up on what's been going on. But all of my New York friends from the Four Kids days, and now my new LA friends who they're across the country, I can't hang out with them at all either because it's a bit of a commute. But sure, we hang out at least on social media if that counts.
Were you sad when Four Kids shut down?
Yes. I was sad because of the people that I had grown to know and love working with there, but also the loss of fairly recurring income was a bit of a blow because it's not, while I'm still going to be searching for work all the time. The recurring shows at Four Kids were a nice, reasonably steady paycheck, and as a freelancer, that's important. But also, they kept laying people off as the company went sank slowly and slowly into the west. So it's tough for people losing their gig. I was just there today doing the video game that I shouldn't have mentioned, and at least a couple of people I knew from before are still there doing various things, and nice to know they're still working.
Do you guys have any other questions for him? Come on, I know you all have the weirdest questions.
Okay, so here's one more about you than your roles. What is the meaning behind your motto? Not just talent, voice talent.
There's a story behind that, and let me see if I can remember it in greater detail. There was an article from it was Samuel E. Wright who played Sebastian the Crab in The Little Mermaid when he was interviewed for a re-release of that fine film, where he said something to the effect of, "It's better that they hired on-camera actors rather than just voice talent, because the on-camera actors can bring a better level of performance." And then in one of the voiceover Facebook groups, that comment was starting to get a lot of negative reaction. And it occurred to me that I'm not just talent, I'm voice talent. He was saying not just voice talent. Well, no, I'm not just voice talent. I'm not just talent. I'm voice talent. That's my specialty. And because I specialize in being voice talent, I can do it pretty well. Thank you very much. So that just became a handy little slogan, which I think sums up the entire voice talent industry quite nicely, if I may say.
I think voice actors need to get a lot more respect.
I would happen to agree.
Yeah, it's hard whenever there's no physical face for people to see like they do on television or in movies. But there's just as much talent that goes into what voice actors do than as much as TV actors do.
Sure, and there's a handy bit of anonymity that goes with the profession as well. People often ask, when you go walking down the street, do people mob you for autographs? No, never happens, because I'm not somebody you're used to seeing around. And also, the people that would tend to be mobbing me would be the younger crowd, which probably aren't wandering the streets when I'm out looking for work. But yeah, I'm in general, unless I'm at a convention and people know that I'm there and they know to expect me, I am delightfully anonymous in most cases. Now that goes two ways. When I go to auditions for commercials with the other random anonymous actors that you probably never heard of because they don't do animation, I'm also just as anonymous. So I've got to prove my skills over and over again. But I'm up to that challenge.
So, do you have any funny stories about when you went for any auditions that you can talk about?
Every time I go to an audition is some type of funny story because I love what I do and I tend to have so much fun doing it that I'll always be joking with the casting director, especially if outtakes happen, because I take great ownership of my outtakes and will have tremendous fun with them. So I don't have any specific memories, but I make sure to make my auditions as much fun for me as I hope it is for the people on the other side of the glass listening. And also, it's an interesting test to find out if I'm auditioning for people with a sense of humor, because if I am, and if they're laughing at what I'm doing, that is usually a good sign that if I were to book the job, we'll have fun doing whatever we have to do.
And on that note, have you ever done any roles that were just downright miserable, or roles that you really didn't like doing?
There are some directors that are more challenging. They're not the best directors known to man, but there's one guy who is known for abusing his talent because he is always in a rush to get stuff done as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And when that's the case, you just go to work for him expecting that it will be a less than pleasurable experience, but you smile your way through it because you know that when you work for him, he will write a check and hand it to you as you leave, which hardly ever happens. So that's a nice little bonus. But even for him, I'm doing fine work, and whether you appreciate it or not, too bad for you.
No name spoken.
It wouldn't matter if I did. You wouldn't know his work.
Let's see. You guys in the chat have any more? They've just gone quiet listening to your wonderful voice.
They're completely enamored with this interview.
They're actually saying that they absolutely love you as Dr. Eggman.
Aw, thank you so much.
Yeah, we've had several of them say.
That's nice.
Well, I think that's enough time for tonight. I
Cool.
want to welcome you as a new sinner
Thank you so
to our
much.
group. And if you wouldn't mind doing like a little shout out for the sinners.
Sure.
Whenever we get the video up, we'll send you, if you don't mind sharing it on, say, Facebook or Twitter for us.
Sure.
We really appreciate that.
Excellent. Let me do a quick.
One more question from Dumb Anime Lover. What was the hardest interview you had to do with, and who was it with?
Well, it wouldn't be nice to name names, but in general, the magic of the internet is that anyone, not only can anyone do interviews, but everyone thinks they can do interviews. And that's not always the case. There are some kids, bless their hearts, for whom they say, I'm going to do interviews and I want you to be my first interview. Chances are, if you're going to be someone's first interview, it's not going to be a great interview. So the kids who want me to be their interview guinea pig, fine, but questions like, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream, is not really going to be the best in-depth interview known to man.
Please tell me you actually haven't been asked that.
Yes, I have. It's Mocha Chip if you're interested, but you're not interested unless you're meeting me for ice cream.
See, now we would love to do that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, Psychoist is asking, who were your influencers or role models growing up?
Every cartoon I've ever watched, the legendary Mel Blanc, the cast of Rocky and Bullwinkle were personal heroes of mine, and I am honored to have been able to speak to most of them before they passed away, with the exception of June Foray, bless her heart, who is still working at this advanced stage of hers. But just the writing of that show and the delightfully spot-on characterizations really touched me in an acting sort of way. Back in the day, in growing up in the late 70s, there was a phenomenon called children's records. Usually, well-known cartoons of the day would, since they couldn't sell home video because that wasn't a thing, they said, well, how can we merchandise this product and get children to buy more things? So they would either cut up the audio of their cartoons or record separate, essentially radio dramas, and put them on records, real live 12-inch vinyl LPs, and put them in record stores. And I had quite a few of them. And even the ones that weren't based on a popular cartoon, but they were voiced by voice actors that I knew from TV, I would listen to those over and over and pick up little nuances in performances. And some of those nuances have followed me to my existing work today.
Now, everyone's asking, will you do one of the songs you wrote for radio?
The better way to hear them is fully produced, and you can find them on my website. If you go to itsamike.com, hang on while I follow you there, and go to Mike's Demos, and then underneath that is More Demos. And in the More Demos selection, you will see samples of Mike's parody writing prowess. All of those I wrote but did not sing. But if you want to hear the ones that I did sing, go back up to the Mike's Demos page, and you will hear me singing on Mike's song parody demo, the song parody voiceover demo, all me singing.
And we'll have a link for that in YouTube, guys, so that you guys
Please.
can even click
Yeah.
it there. I know
There'll
I've
be a
been
link in the
hunting
description.
and pecking around your site.
Cool. Thank you so
Gaming
much.
Raiders Gaming Raiders asking, a few months ago there was a Sonic the Hedgehog theatrical film announced. Will you be having any part in that?
Not as far as I know.
I think we all kind of hope that was a joke.
No. Using as precedent the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films, which they keep recasting. So the Turtles film that was just out this summer didn't have the Turtles from the current cartoon in it. So
Yeah, that was a movie.
yep, but it was a movie that did not feature any of the existing cast. So
Yeah, that's a bit.
whatever that means.
Um,
If they need me, they know how to reach me. But if they want to do something else, it's their stuff. Let them do it.
and for all you animators out there, I have seen you do. You have done Flash voices for Flash cartoons, so it's not just the big screen that you'll do stuff for.
Right, I'll do some stuff for fans as long as it's not competing with any of the stuff that I actually do for big money. And the stuff for fans is generally for small money, like a cup of coffee or two if you're feeling generous.
Well, we're always generous around here, so if we ever ask you to do something, you can expect a couple cups of coffee.
Maybe an entire bag of coffee mix.
Perfect.
I'm trying to think of what we could get you to say for us.
I can say something mildly generic, like, "Hi, it's Mike Pollock, the voice of Dr. Eggman, and apparently I'm a sinner."
I like that.
Thank you so much.
I think
good.
I want to thank you so much for being here. It really was an honor. I was really excited when I found out we were going to get to interview you, and I hope you
Excellent.
come back sometime because I know we'll have more people with more questions, and we'll put you in silly things.
Might I suggest after the premiere of Sonic Boom, because I'm sure people will have thoughts and comments and questions on Sonic Boom.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you don't mind
Certainly.
coming back at that time.
Sure. Give it a couple weeks.
I know.
I would say give it a couple weeks to make an impression on people. Because the first episode might be, I hated it! And that wouldn't be fun at all.
Now, do you have any questions for the fans?
Why haven't you gone to my website yet?
Because they're too busy listening to you here.
Perfect.
And I haven't
no,
had the time.
check in on social media. I'm there. I'm free. I'm accessible.
So once again, thank you and welcome to the Sinners. We will have you back after a few episodes of Sonic Boom. And all you sinners, keep an eye out. I'll be doing a review of it, and you all better watch it. Otherwise, I'm going to be really mad at you.
Excellent.
You don't like her when she's mad.
I'm horrible when I'm mad.
Perfect.
So we're going to get to the game because we're actually about to do Sonic in the Lost World.
Excellent. Have a swell time.
Thank you again for being with us.
Thanks for having
Thanks
me.
for joining us.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for everything.
Everyone go on his site.